It's a new year, and with it comes even more new ways of doing business. We've seen the legal industry change as it's grappled with the hybrid workforce and this rapid wave of digitization. And now we're entering a new normal in 2022, both for firms and clients alike. To meet this new age of client firm collaboration, it's important to embrace innovation and the technological solutions that come with it. This week, we're talking about financial matter management, the how, the why, oh wait, I'm having deja vu. Welcome everyone, I'm Blerina Halili.
And I'm Mike Zawissa.
And this is episode 1 of season 2. That's right, we've learned a lot in season 1 and we're looking forward to trying out some different ways of sharing stories and connecting with our audience. Most weeks, Mike and I will check in with the latest trends or stories that stood out to us, but we'll also be bringing you digestible interviews with some of the prominent industry leaders.
Exactly. For instance, this week we'll be speaking with Stuart Dodds, who is the co-founder of Positive Pricing, which is a professional services focused pricing consulting firm, and he's also the author of Smarter Pricing, Smarter Profit, a guide for the law firm of the future. So with 30 years of experience covering law firm pricing, Stuart isn't just an expert on the subject, he also wrote the book on it as well. So without further ado, let's get into that interview.
Well, thank you, Stuart, for joining us today. So let's dive right in. How do you think that law firms today can improve client value?
I think the key thing here is actually communication. I think it's understanding, what's important to our client, having that conversation with our client. It's understanding how we can add value to that client, to, for example, the client's organization, to the client contact themselves, the individuals that we're dealing with, and also by providing services that maybe aren't available from the competition. So, what makes us different as a firm? It's allowing us also to be providing that client with greater visibility of how we're tracking on the matter that once we've started work. So, it's the concept of no surprises here. It's around greater predictability and greater certainty around what we're doing at a price that we believe is a proportional and appropriate to the value that's at stake for that matter itself.
And when it comes to some of the biggest challenges that law firms face today, when it comes to matter planning and budgeting, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, certainly what I've seen when I've been in both line roles and also subsequently as a consultant is there's a number of key things that come. One is, firstly, it's finding out, well, what is similar to the matter that I'm being asked to propose a fee quote on or provide an estimate on. So it's looking for that precedent within my firm. Lots of firms have data. Very few firms have very useful matter information, at least less firms have very useful matter information. So I think that's part of it. So it's finding those comparators that I can build my budget from that give me comfort that I'm covering the key elements on behalf of the client, but also making sure that I'm not taking on any undue risk as a law firm. I think secondly, it's around visibility of information. It's actually making sure that I can find the information that I need to have to be allowing me to manage that matter effectively, and making sure that I can set my clients' expectations and manage their expectations effectively through that matter life cycle. And I think that the final thing is actually having that information that's very, very current. So, a lot of people have those precedents, a lot of people have that visibility, but sometimes the information they're getting is maybe 3, 4, 5 days out of date, and they're less comfortable to share that with the client. So if you can get much more current information, much more real-time information, that obviously is much more compelling both from you as a user and from your client in terms of where that matter is in terms of progress.
Stuart, if I can follow up with that real quick, how do you think firms are currently tackling and tracking and reporting on their data?
Sure. I think there's, like anything, there's a range. I think one
Hmm.
of the things that I've certainly seen is that there are many firms who've made big strides in this area using products such as Umbria and some of the other products that are out there in the marketplace. But I think many are still using Excel. They're not managing their budgets throughout the lifetime of the matter. There was a couple of surveys done recently that sort of indicate as much, that about 30 to 35% of matters are actually being actively managed. And again, if you can't have that real-time information, if you're not feeling comfortable with the information that's being presented to you, you're less comfortable to then manage the matter and set expectations both internally within your client team, but also importantly with your clients. But there has been big strides here. I think a lot of firms are doing best endeavors. I think they're having a combination of systems that maybe help them do something. So they might do something in Excel, they might do something from their practice management system. They're trying to do some sort of manipulation in the middle. And I think the key thing that I'm certainly seeing is actually from a client's perspective, it seems to be relatively unmanaged. Those clients, those firms that get this right, that can provide that client with that visibility very, very quickly, very, very confidently, whether that be through some system generated report or some other process, will really stand out in the eyes of the client because they want to know that you're in control of the matter and they feel that you're looking after their money as if it's your own money.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I think part of it too is when clients understand that the technology that's being used is efficient and everything like that, I think it adds to overall satisfaction on their end. But I think there are definitely some frustrations when it comes to this process if you're not using some of the proper tools that you mentioned, even beyond Excel. What do you think? What do you consider the main frustrations of law firm partners to be when it comes to planning and budgeting today?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the frustrations, if I think back to my time when I was in house, is actually, well, what have we done that's similar? So they're looking for that comparator very, very quickly. And they know it's not going to be exactly the same, but they want to understand, well, we've surely done something like this before. Now, the irony here is that if you ask that partner, what have you done before? Oh, well, it's all very, very different. They're not necessarily willing to provide their examples. They want to see other people's examples.
Hmm.
But I think one of the challenges here is actually, well, what have we done before as a firm, particularly the larger firms? And I know that many of the clients that you have as an organization are global firms or large regional firms. So it's finding that comparator. I think the other thing is actually also then separating slightly the process of costing a matter, which is actually it's Mike times 10 hours times $100, it's Stuart times 10 hours times $50 or whatever it may be, to actually then pricing that matter. So it's using this as a basis to have the conversation, to be doing the thinking, to say actually what's involved in delivering this matter in terms of the different phases or activities that I need to do, in terms of the different staff that I need to do, and actually do I know who's available to help me do this piece of work, but then also be able to overlay that to say, well, what are some of the conditions or some of the risks that we need to mitigate as part of this matter, in terms of the assumptions? What are some of the what's the market charging for this? What actually should the price be given what's at stake to the client? And many people stop at that first stage. What they say is actually, I found something that I think is comparable to this matter. What was the price for that? That's good enough. That's the price I'm going to quote. And actually that's not the right solution. I think a lot of people see pricing quite simplistically. It doesn't have to be overly complex, but actually by being able to look at a system and interrogate a system with similar examples, similar comparators, as I know, for example, Umbria allows you to do, and then say, actually, what's the best fit for the client situation I'm going to be in here? And actually now what pricing options can I begin to think of in terms of different types of pricing approach, whether it be a fixed fee or a cat fee or some other approach that's maybe taken. And now what does that look like? Let me see what the options are and let me find out from that what the best price should be for us to have that conversation with the client. I think that's the frustration. It's the information being ready to hand, it's the information being pertinent for what's at stake, and it's being able to also include some of those other factors, such as, can I see what it would be like if we did this as a team, or if I did that as a team, or if I used this as a pricing approach? It's that flexibility that I think is really quite important. And that's where people get frustrated, because often they just want the price, but they don't want to do the thinking behind the price.
And that, you kind of described also what we call a financial matter management solution, right? You want to have that kind of flexibility. But do you think that it differs when it comes to the components of such a solution, let's say for a law firm partner compared to a pricing professionally? Would they look for different elements when it comes to such a solution?
I think they would. I mean, I think a law firm partner is typically focused on the specific matter, that specific client relationship. So they want to understand, well, what have we done before for this client? What have we done for similar types of matters? And that's great, and that's what they should be doing. But actually, a pricing professional or a legal project management professional is probably going to take a slightly different approach. If it's a pricing professional, they may say, well, what have we done for other similar clients? What have we done for other matters? Where have we found that we've actually had to write off additional time? Where have we got an opportunity to improve our assumptions or change the staffing so that actually it's a better balance of the team, both in terms of what the client's expectations are in terms of staffing, but also in terms of what contributes profit or revenue back to the firm. From a project management perspective, it's saying, actually, how can we have that visibility on who's doing what activity? And actually, are we able to track how we're doing against that matter so that I can give my partner, or indeed my partners, my client teams, many more immediate updates in terms of what the progress is, and be able to escalate and highlight when things are going a little bit off track. So the perception and the information that you're looking for can often be very, very different. The first group, the partner group, give me the number, let me understand how it's built up, and then I'm good to go. The other two are looking for a bit more in-depth information, maybe much more comprehensive and broad information within an organization, because they're not only looking to support this matter as well as they can, they're looking to try and mitigate challenges for future matters that may be similar.
Future-proofing themselves in a way.
Indeed, that's right.
And as you mentioned, right, the product is as good as the people using it. Adoption is key. And if you're not having a solution that's targeting your main pain points, why would you want to use it in a manner that doesn't suit you? So, you're mentioning some of the main points when it comes to a solution for different target audiences. And Mike, I think you also had another question.
Yeah, of course. I was about to say, Blerina, ease of use is obviously a big component of adoption, of whether or not a software is intuitive and will be picked up. I mean, that's potentially one of the biggest criteria, especially when you look at today across industries, what platforms are being used. Even in something like Teams, it's intuitive. It's something. It's Microsoft, so it's something we inherently understand. So along those same lines, does criteria shift depending on who the audience is that's engaging in the process? Like for your pricing professional, is that going to be different, or their concerns or their criteria that they're looking for a solution? Is that going to be different than like a partner at the firm?
I think it will be, and it's funny. I mean, one of the things I was just reflecting on as you were chatting, I remember one of the firms that I work for. I won't name them, but they had a pricing solution in place, not yours, but a pricing solution from a few years ago. And actually, I can remember doing an audit after a period of time to say how many people used the solution, and it was 2 in a whole year in a global firm, because it wasn't intuitive, it wasn't easy to use. And actually, that's one of the challenges, that sometimes people buy a piece of software to solve a problem, but then nobody uses it because it isn't intuitive, it isn't easy to use, they don't understand how they get value from it. But I think, Mike, in terms of the question that you're asking, I think people look for different things. I think it's got to be easy to use. If it's certainly for partners, senior associates, non-business professionals in a law firm, as it should be, because you want it to give them the answers as quickly as possible. But I think those of in the law firms who are business professionals, the LPM teams, the finance teams, the marketing teams, the pricing teams, it can be a bit more complex, because you really want the opportunity, I think, there to interrogate the data a bit more. So the ability to download data from the application is really, really helpful. I think you're also going to be looking to do much more analysis on the information, so that the reporting flexibility, the dashboarding flexibility, I think is really, really important. You're also going to be wanting to maybe model more complex fee arrangements. One of the things that I've certainly noticed over the last 12 to 18 months is many more, for example, retainer relationships between law firms and their bigger clients. So the ability to manage them successfully as part of a matter management solution is critical. The ability to potentially manage litigation financing matters, or sorry, matters that are using litigation financing, is also critical, because actually that's deferred revenue. There's an element of risk, there's an element of again, complexity there that many solutions don't provide. And I know that the Umbria product has things in place to allow you to do those very, very easily. And I think if I was doing it from a pricing perspective, I'd be looking to say, actually, is this tool one that I can use and adapt to my current situation, giving the flexibility of options to allow me to do that what if scenario modeling, and allow me the flexibility in terms of reporting and analytics that I probably wouldn't get elsewhere.
And you mentioned earlier the matter of visibility, reporting, and tracking. So how do you think in general firms can improve this entire process of handling these manual types of work that they did in the past, right? With reporting and everything, it took so much time compared to now that we're driving towards automation. And so how do you think that this conversation is changing? And what are some of the issues that, let's say, come up whenever a matter is over budget because it has not been tracked properly?
It's funny. I was doing a training course with a client earlier on today, and actually we had an exercise on this about I said it was, say, $50,000, and I've got $100,000 on the clock, and actually everybody to a person said, well, that just shouldn't happen. We should be tracking that. But actually the reality is that although we know we should be doing it, often we don't, because we haven't either got the budgets within our practice management system or indeed a matter management system. We don't have real-time information, so we don't know who's been working on the matter and what's on the clock. We don't know what's necessarily been agreed in terms of any scope changes or scope variations that have happened. We don't necessarily have that data being pushed towards us. Sometimes we have to be actually requesting it in some firms to ask for that information. So again, it comes back to there's a number of things that mean that this often doesn't happen, although we all intuitively know that we should be doing it. So anything that takes that stress away, that takes that noise away by it being much more visible, much more pertinent to what I need as a matter partner or as a matter associate, that I have confidence that it's actually as accurate as possible. It might have a 24-hour delay, but it's not going to have a 24-day delay. That's certainly very true. And it's something that I can have confidence in and check and interrogate is going to allow me to be able to have those much more prompt client conversations. That, you know, I know that one of the themes that's come out over the last 12 to 18 months has been that a number of firms have actually seen a significant increase in the amount of write-offs that they've had to take on board, either because clients were no longer prepared to accept project overruns, which I don't think they should be anyway, or because of that visibility of the information internally was being slightly delayed. And actually, we know that there's a huge opportunity for law firms to improve their commercial performance by managing write-offs better, by having those scope change conversations better. And also importantly, we know that there's a great opportunity for law firms to strengthen their client relationships by being much more transparent and where they are on the matter and having the right conversations on scope at the right time. So again, a lot of the tools such as Umbria allow you to get that visibility earlier, which allow you to have that conversation with the client much more promptly, which allows you to help manage their expectations and find solutions much more collaboratively, and means that when you do have that invoice at the end, that there's no surprises and hopefully everybody's happy.
And we're back. What a great interview with Stuart, Mike. You know, he's definitely got the industry down.
For sure. And he even liked Tina's analogy about cleaning out the closet. We'll also call it my analogy too. I'll steal it from Tina a little bit.
Nice deal. Well, that kind of wraps up our episode 1 of season 2. We'll be back next time with part 2 of our exclusive interview with Stuart. But not only that, we've got plenty of industry updates coming in season 2. And so don't forget to stay tuned for many more exciting updates and content from us in the meantime. For Mike, I'm Blerina, and this is ProsperoTune.